I think today what I want to share is my journey. I work in the hotel industry. I've been there for a couple of years. I don't want to tell you how many because it reveals my age. And for me, I feel like as a Singaporean working in the hotel industry, it is a wildly unpopular industry to enter. So I've spent a lot of my life choosing wildly unpopular things. And today I want to share with you a few of my mountains and my valleys and how maybe God showed me the purpose and meaning that I found journeying through my industry. What I'm showing you here now on this slide is what you can find on my LinkedIn profile. And when we look at the iceberg that Pakwa showed us earlier, this is the surface, right? So some quick facts. I went to hotel school in 2002. In 2006, I graduated top of the class. I joined Raffles Hotels and Resorts at the head office. And I proceeded to work there for 5 years. During my time there, I encountered the financial crisis. That was the last crisis. I was a very young hotelier then, and I was not fired because I was literally too cheap to be fired. I was doing so much work, and I was paid so little that I am the best person to keep around. And that's why I survived the first financial crisis of my lifetime. During recovery, I spent 1 year where half the year I was on the road. I opened hotels. They look very fancy. I went to Paris, Seychelles, Mecca. I couldn't enter, and Tianjin. After that, Marina Bay Sands, that wonderfully huge hotel, was opening. I got approached to join Marina Bay Sands. I was there for 8 years. I was the director of revenue management. I grew into my director of revenue management role there. And if in case you're wondering, what does revenue management do? We're like these geeky people that look at spreadsheets and decide the hotel prices. So at Marina Bay Sands, with 2,561 rooms, I did it to the nth degree. And you all know today how successful that hotel is. I was part of that journey. Then in 2019, I took a sabbatical. I went to Australia. I was a loopy fruitcake for 1 year, and I really enjoyed it. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed having no responsibility for 1 year. And at the end of that 1 year, I was thinking, okay, I think I might want to be respectable again. I might want to find work, but really don't feel like it. Would like to be a hippie for the rest of my life. COVID kind of happened. So I was in Perth. Borders shut. Obviously, families are like, you come home now. I took the last flight from Perth in March 2020 and landed in Singapore. I went immediately into quarantine for 2 weeks. And at that point in time, just before this period when I was pondering about what to do and pretending I can be a hippie, Raffles Hotel actually called me. They had actually just opened in 2019, and my ex-colleague called me in December and was like, Limin, are you done playing? Can you come back to work? And actually, this is in January, no idea of COVID, very innocent, very naive. I was like, no, I refuse to come back to work. I want to continue being a hippie. And I actually came back to visit them, and they ambushed me and tried to recruit me. And I was still like, no. But what happened was COVID happened. And I'm not in Australia. I was back in Singapore. And I just kind of like texted them and was like, hey, I'm here anyway. Like the whole world is on lockdown. I mean, I can't be a hippie in my own apartment, right? So do you want to take me? And honestly, I don't know how to explain to you how hard is it to imagine to be hired at that point in time, okay? My job as a director of revenue is only useful when there's money to be made. In COVID, there's nothing to be made. I was like, there's no way they're gonna hire me. And they were like, yes, we still want you. And I was like, really? Okay. Okay, I'll come to work. And I was like, okay, I'll go to work in lockdown and it'll be quite fun, you know? I got nothing to do. I like that. I like that life. And I remember like I had 1 week of like nothing to do, and then like they lifted the lockdown and everybody started doing staycations. And since 2020 up till today, I've been at Raffles Hotel, and it really has been an amazing roller coaster working there through all the changes with COVID, right? So that's what you see, and I think it sounds quite nice. I think the story sounds like I'm fairly accomplished, I've done something with myself, I have chosen an unpopular path, and I have made something of my choice. So in the next slide, I'll share with you a few of the difficult moments, right? When I chose to go to hotel school, I finished JC and wanted to go to hotel school. There was no future. There were no new hotels being built. Marina Bay Sands and Resorts World was absolutely not on the horizon. Everybody was like, this is a terrible choice. And I just felt like I really fervently love the hotel industry and I really want to go to hotel school. And I chose to do that. On hindsight, I think when I was graduating, the year I graduated, I remember that was when they announced the building of Marina Bay Sands. And suddenly my parents looked very proud because they were like, people were telling them, oh my God, your daughter has so much foresight. I'm like, are you kidding me? How am I supposed to conjure up 2 integrated resorts? I definitely didn't have any foresight at all. I just chose it. In my last year in hotel school, I became Christian. And the reason why that was very significant for me and has been really an anchor in sort of grounding me in the hotel industry is that I was entering, I remember distinctively about to enter my 3rd year in hotel school. I was doing well and I was student class president, clearly like very lazy but still overachieving human being I am. And I was feeling very existential about the hospitality industry. I had done 2 internships. The hotel industry is really tough. You see guests from all walks of life, you work with people, and you're not always treated well within the industry itself. It's just a very rude awakening from a dream that I held onto. And when I had nothing else to anchor me, that's when I found God. And for me, I felt like God was telling me, this is your industry, and this is where you're supposed to be, so just keep going, right? And that was a significant milestone for me. So obviously, when I joined the industry, I did choose revenue management when there was no such thing really in Asia. I wasn't educated on revenue management philosophies when I was in school. Now, if you go to hotel school, you get a whole module. I had like 5 pages. Okay, so I joined revenue management because I read like, I mean, with my specs, you can tell I clearly read a lot and I'm very geeky. So I read a lot of textbooks and I was very excited about it. So I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And I met a wonderful vice president who decided to mentor me in revenue management. So I joined Raffles Hotels and Resorts as an intern with, like, not ashamed to say, $1,500 as my salary, with no future and a 6-month internship with her. And I remember thinking that I may not really know what will come out of this, but I will be able to learn a lot from a very amazing person who will mentor me. So I made that choice. And I think, I mean, in that journey with Raffles Hotel, I was really blessed to be promoted and given a lot of opportunities. Remember, I told you I was too cheap to fire in the financial crisis because I'm very young, very hardworking, and not paid a lot. So best employee to have on the payroll. So during the financial crisis, something else also happened, and that actually happened in my family. I'm the eldest daughter. I have two younger siblings, and my parents at that point in time were both retired. So in that financial crisis, we had no money. So this all like came crashing down. Whole world is in chaos, and I'm just lucky to have a job, you know? And I remember at that point in time, I took on my family mortgage with this extremely low salary and took over the finances for my family. So when people look at why I am a good revenue manager, it's because I cannot imagine not making money. You know? So for the 8 years when I was at MBS, I was a very mildly anxious, angry revenue person, because if you dare to suggest something that does not make money, I will go for you. And I think you can talk to I'm not shy in saying this. If you talk to anyone at MBS, they're like, okay, she's sometimes mildly psycho. And I think when I reflected on my journey, I felt like God really used a pain that I have and turned it into my expertise, you know? And I really, when I reflect on the journey, I cannot help but feel so grateful and undeserving of what I've achieved, which is why I decided to take a sabbatical, because after 8 years at MBS, I managed to pay off my family mortgage. And I told this story many times, particularly to my Marina Bay Sands colleagues, because I was there for 8 years and I loved them. I loved working with them. And the only way that they would let me go is if I told them, can you imagine that the last 8 years, I'm sprinting for 5? And now that I've paid this off, I can just walk for 1. Just let me walk for 1, you know? And they were like, okay, I mean, you turn out this top story, people just have to let you go lah. So I took a sabbatical at the peak of my career. And I'll tell you that during that 1 year, I really loved not doing anything. But it also gave me a chance to really question my identity. It gave me a chance to question my professionalism, my purpose. And at that point in time, I really did think I had said goodbye to hotels, you know? Because I feel like in revenue management, I've done a lot, and I love the break, and I don't know if I will go back to hotels. That's the honest truth. And I had actually gone on and started like an Airbnb in Perth, and I found an investor and all that, and I took this very seriously. I really didn't think I would come back to hotels. But as you all know earlier, the pandemic happened. I came back to Singapore. I had nothing to do, and I started working at Raffles Hotel. And I felt like truly God had and has still called me to be back in Singapore and at Raffles Hotel for a very specific time and reason. Because during this pandemic, after the pandemic is over, in the time of recovery, when the demand is coming back, that is when a good revenue manager can really make a difference. Okay? Because a good revenue manager can tell when the demand is coming back and when to increase prices. And for me, that really was my purpose during this pandemic. I dearly loved being at Raffles Hotel, where every time for me, when I increase prices, I know people paying are like, hey, this person is crazy. But what is in my mind is I have 400 salaries to feed. 400 salaries with 400 families from all walks of life, from the housekeeper that takes a bus from Johor every morning to come to work, from the Gen Z person that joined my team in the middle of a pandemic, from the very old auntie that still does housekeeping after 20 years. These are the people I see when I change prices. And I feel like that was my purpose. And since I'm still at Raffles Hotel, that is still my purpose. I still love being there. And currently now, I'm actually learning hotel operations. So I'm still a revenue director, but I have chosen to start learning a little bit more about hotel operations. So that's where I am now. And I think that this journey really has been truly lots of ups, lots of downs, but I really see God speaking to me so clearly to be exactly where I'm supposed to be. I think you can tell from the way I speak, I'm a bit of a, if you all read the Bible, the prophet I relate most to is Jonah. Run away all the time. God say, go here. Then you're like, no, I want to go to Tarshish. And then must go through, swallowed by a whale and get spit out, then finally, okay, we go here. So I really relate to Jonah, and I feel that this is where I'm firmly supposed to be. Next slide. So about the hotel industry, hospitality, it's deeply unpopular, but has deep meaning and purpose. Firstly, I think one thing that I love about the industry is that you really don't need any qualifications to join the industry. Barriers of entry is very low. If you meet top hospitality executives, people that have become CEOs in hospitality companies, some of them still have the I started as a butler story. And I think that is just amazing. I think most people think that is like, oh, very unrespectable. But to me, I'm like, that's awesome. Because it really is that industry that doesn't really care about what academic qualifications you have, but just your desire to come to work, to serve people, and to do good work. The pandemic has really made this industry very financially insecure and unattractive. We're having a huge hiring problem. That's probably why I initially said yes to Pak Wah. I thought maybe I can do a hiring call. Anybody want to join the hotel industry? I kind of say yes to speaking engagements, kind of just like, okay, if I meet other people from other walks of life, then okay lah. Then after that, maybe people will be like, yay, I want to join the hotel industry. We really need people, in case you haven't heard. Singaporeans don't like joining the hotel industry. They perceive it as a job of servitude, and that you are not respectable when you work in the hotel industry because you do shift work. I mean, that's the weirdest thing I've heard in my life. Doctors do shift work, the worst shift work in the world. But hospitality industry is the one that you cannot join because it does shift work. I think why I love the industry is really the core value in hospitality is serving you just as you are. We don't get a choice. Even in places as iconic as Marina Bay Sands or Raffles Hotel, we don't get a choice at who we're serving. The minute you enter our doors, we serve you. We take you at face value, and we provide the best service for you. And I feel that in many cases, that is also one of the reasons why I love this industry. It has no pretenses, and we're made up of trying to just serve everybody that comes through our doors. And it requires just amazing, amazing teamwork. So in the hotel industry, we like to use this term called moments of truths. When you come and check in, you make a reservation, you go for dinner, you see the concierge, you get your luggage picked up, your bed is being made. All these are many different moments of truths. And each moment of truth is done by a completely different team. And we all need to work so closely together to make sure that you as a guest check out and have a good time. So good hotels have great teamwork. I mean, I can tell you that when I was at Raffles Hotel and we started welcoming our first international delegation coming to Singapore, and the way the team just kind of like woke up and was able to deliver that kind of service that is seamless and wonderful. It's really just all quite beautiful, if you can see it. Next. So, I think in reflecting about my journey, I just wanted to share with you a little bit about, in terms of finding purpose and meaning, I love this quote from a daily devotion I read. We are made for two places, Eden and heaven. Eden reminds us of who we are created to be, and heaven reminds us of where we're called to go. I think in our search for purpose and meaning, like what Pakwa shared earlier about self-awareness and self-leadership, we need to first really be able to look deeply in ourselves to ask us, who are we created to be? Are we doing this because society says we should do it? Are we doing this because it will give us status and money, which is wonderful, but can be a bit empty? And what are the unique strengths, weaknesses that you have in who you are, that God has created you to show and really be salt and light in this world? So I'll wrap up by sharing with you my glimpses of Eden and heaven. Next slide. My favorite author is called Bob Goff. He says, each of us has a place that feels like heaven, a place where it's easier to serve God's creativity expressed in love and joy, mountains and streams. So I brought props, because I'm clearly very insecure about speaking in front of so many people. Before I left Marina Bay Sands, I deliberated very long to leave. It was very difficult. It was a long decision. I planned my departure for 1 year. During that 1 year before my departure, I wrote letters to my team. So every 2 months, I wrote them a letter, and I saved up these letters. The year that I left, I gave them this book, Letters to My Team, a compilation of 10 letters, because I knew that after I left, what would be challenging for them was to have faith in themselves when I'm not around to protect them, that I usually am. So they each have a book. It's called Letters to My Team. And they gave me a book from them, and they wrote letters to me. And to me, this is like the best book exchange in the world. And that is my glimpse of heaven. And then lastly, a glimpse of Eden. I'm still making unpopular decisions, but I'm unabashedly me. I think now I've fully embraced who God created me to be, and my baptism name is Eden. So if listening to my story, you are inspired to just have a little bit more courage to search deeply in yourselves to find out who God created you to be, then I think my purpose here is okay. Thank you.